exists. The sins of Babylon will be what? Laid open. The fearful result of enforcing the observance by the church, by civil authority, the inroads of spiritualism, the stealthy but rapid progress of the papal power, all will be unmasked. All will be unmasked, it says. We need to unmask these. Well, if I'm not going to unmask them and you refuse to unmask them, who will unmask them? Someone will. Why not you? Why not me? It is not a popular message, but nevertheless, it must be given. It must be presented, ladies and gentlemen. With the Second Vatican Council, in 1962 to 1965, the Council changed public opinion greatly. The Council changed public opinion greatly against the Catholic Church, from against it to more favorable position. Yet, he goes on to say, yet it changed nothing in the Vatican's attempt to exercise authority over governmental policies. However, official Roman Catholic doctrine did not change on any crucial points. So the purpose and the program of the Vatican remain that the authoritarian control of Catholics and of government. They not only want to control the people of their church, but they want to control the governments of the world. The traditional position of the church, as formulated by Pope Leo XIII and circulated in the United States in 1960, just before Vatican II, was that state must not only have care for religion, but must recognize the true religion professed by the Catholic Church. It says that they're not only to have care for religion, but must recognize the true religion professed by the Roman Church. By the Roman Church. Great Controversy, page 571. The Roman Church now presents a fair front to the world, covering with apologies her record of horrible cruelties. She has clothed herself in Christ-like garments, but she is what? Unchanged. Every principle of the papacy that existed in past ages exists today. The doctrines devised in the darkest ages are still held. Let none, that means you and me, let none of us deceive ourselves. The papacy that Protestants are now so ready to honor is the same that ruled the world in the days of the Reformation. Here's an article and a statement by Pope Benedict XVI before he became the Pope. Vatican City. One of Pope John Paul II's closest aides has written to the bishops worldwide declaring that the Catholic Church is the mother of all other Christian churches. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that exactly what Revelation chapter 17 says? That she is the mother of harlots? They don't mind sharing. They're the mother church, and all the churches must come back to her. And as we saw yesterday, they're certainly coming back to her without a doubt. We can see that taking place. Not only was this man, before he became Pope, an aide to the former Pope, but he was in charge of the enforcer of Catholic dogma. The enforcer of Catholic dogma. He goes on to say, in the document, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger told the bishops that it was incorrect to refer to Christian churches ranging from Orthodox to Protestant as sister churches of the Catholic Church. It must be always clear that the one holy Catholic Apostolic Universal Church is not a sister, but the mother of all churches, Ratzinger was quoted as saying. He goes on to say in the LA Times article, September 6, 2000, the bluntly worded declaration by the Vatican office that oversees Catholic doctrine said that followers of non-Christian faiths have gravely deficient chances for salvation, and that other Christian churches have defects, partially because they do not recognize the authority of the Pope. And this is the whole issue. They want the authority to dictate to all churches and all peoples and all governments of what they should do, how they should act, how they should rule. And the Bible tells us that this nation will bring some enforcements that will cause the world to wonder after this power. The article goes on to say the statement broke no new theological ground. No new theological ground. It's the same. Detroit News. How many of you remember when Pope John Paul II put out an encyclical called Dies Domini, the Day of the Lord? It was released July 7th, 1998. It was about 32, 33 pages long. And this is what he just said in that encyclical: you can't be a true Christian, and you certainly can't be expect to be saved unless you're going to church on Sunday and involved in the Mass. But this is what Detroit News, Detroit, Michigan, ladies and gentlemen, United States of America, Protestant America, so-called. Pope's call for worship welcome. He warns Catholics to dedicate Sundays to celebrating God. I want to go back to the old ways where Sunday was the Lord's day, Shriver said. I agree with the Pope. I want that life again. This is really an extraordinary move, said Jay McAnally, Executive Director of Call to Holiness. This appears to be the strongest words the Pope has issued, period. In his letter, the Pope goes on to say a violator should be punished as a heretic. How did they treat heretics? What did they used to do with heretics? Ladies and gentlemen, they burned them at the stake. And yet this is in a press, in a newspaper in Detroit, Michigan of Protestant America, and yet no one says anything about it. Daniel chapter 7:25, referring to this power, and he shall wear out the saints of the Most High. Persecution. In the book, Catholic Power versus American Freedom Continued, page 158, the Declaration of Religious Liberty speaks of the rights of parents to determine the kind of religious education that their children are to receive. In this way, the Vatican Council has woven the idea of government aid to church schools. Whose idea is it to give aid to church schools from the government? The Roman Church. And what is Protestant American leaders doing? Giving aid. Who benefits? I read an article out of Washington, D.C. I think there was something like 38 different parochial schools. 33 out of the 38 were Roman Catholic that could receive school vouchers. Who benefits most by the tax money going to parochial schools? The Roman Church. And that's why they push for it. In October the 2nd, 1965, editorial, the Jesuit Weekly American acknowledged the shortcoming of the Declaration of Religious Liberty. It says, quote, "It is perhaps necessary to remind Americans that the Council is not about to enact the First Amendment of the United States Constitution as a Catholic doctrine." What is the First Amendment? Freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. They don't like that particular amendment. They would like to do away with it. Great Controversy, page 464 and 465. Pope Pius, in his encyclical letter in August of 1854, said, "The absurd and erroneous doctrines or ravings in defense of liberty of conscience are a most pestilential error, a pest of all others, most to be dreaded in a state." The same Pope in his encyclical later of December 8th anathematized those who assert the liberty of conscience and of religious worship, the liberty, also all such as maintain that the church may not employ force. He says, if you can't employ force, if you come up against it, you're totally wrong. We have the right to use force to make people worship the way we think. That's what they believe, ladies and gentlemen, and they have not changed. The Second Vatican strategy is to silence important Catholic critics who deviate from the official Vatican position. Now, this is written by a Catholic author. The world's leading Catholic theologian, Hans Kung, referred to this in a long statement published in October of 1985. National Catholic Reporter. Quote, "No one is burned at the stake anymore, but careers and psychics are destroyed as required." Isn't that interesting? Well, one day I was in Kentucky. I was riding up the interstate, and I was looking for some news on the radio, and I came across a Catholic station. On this station, there were a couple of Catholic priests talking on there, and they mentioned this book. They mention this book. I'll hold it up for you. It's called